They didn't knock. They didn't ask. They just tore through my farm in a luxury silver SUV like it was their personal playground. Fence broken. Crops ruined. Animals scattered. I asked them to stop kindly, then legally, and then I stopped asking. That's when I made a plan. Not for revenge. For consequences. Because sometimes you don't need to fight back. You just need to let the land do what land does best. This is the story of how I taught two entitled sisters a muddy lesson they'll never forget. They didn't knock. They didn't slow down. They didn't even look at the giant handmade sign that said, "Private property." They just barreled straight through. Two women in a gleaming white Lamborghini Urus. Like kings of a kingdom they didn't own. Fence? Smashed. Crops? Torn up like trash. Animals? Scattering, panicked. And me? Standing in the doorway of my barn, shovel in hand, wondering how this even made sense. I asked them to stop. Politely. Then formally. Then legally. And when none of that worked, let's just say, their precious car got baptized in a way only justice and mud can deliver. Let me tell you how it happened. I caught up with them near the bend of the trail where the pasture starts thinning out. Dust still floated in the air behind the Urus, fingerprints of the chaos they just caused. I walked up slow, hands raised, calm as I could be for a man watching his crops get murdered by Italian horsepower. To their credit, they stopped. But only after nearly hitting one of my goats. The driver, a round-faced woman covered in leopard print and oversized sunglasses, rolled down the window like I was just another minor inconvenience on her errand list. "You lost?" I asked, tight smile, fists clenched in my pockets. The passenger, blonde, sweating, pink tank top riding way too high, leaned over Carol, the driver, and laughed. "Nope," she said, popping her neon pink gum. "Just taking a shortcut. GPS brought us this way. Chill out, Farmer Ted." I pointed behind them at the snapped fence post still twitching in the wind. "That's private property. You're trespassing. Cost me time and money." The blonde one, Susan, raised her phone like she was documenting Bigfoot. Look, Carol, the scarecrow speaks. He's mad." Carol snorted without even looking at me. "Don't build a farm in the middle of a shortcut." Then, before I could say another word, she slapped the gearshift, tires screamed, and they roared off down the hill again, straight through the soybean line. I stood there, too stunned to yell. That wasn't a mistake. That was deliberate. And something told me they'd be back. I like to believe in second chances. Even third ones, if I'm being honest. City folks get lost sometimes. They put too much faith in technology and not enough in common sense. And maybe, I thought just maybe, those sisters were a one-time storm that had passed through and move on. I was wrong. 3 days later, they came back. Same car. Same bass-heavy music that rattled my window panes from half a mile away. And this time, they didn't even slow down. Blew right past the new private property sign I hammered in by the fence. Drove over it, actually. Bent the nails flat. No wave. No smile. No sign of remorse. Just laughter echoing behind that tinted glass as they crushed another section of pasture like it was pavement. I patched up what I could. Crops can recover sometimes, but soil? That takes weeks to settle again. My cows were skittish around the sound of engines now, and my dog refused to cross the southern trail unless I walked with him. The worst part? They started bringing friends. Convertible full of them once. Loud, screaming, honking, like they were headed to Coachella instead of cutting through a working farm. They filmed themselves, music blaring, phones up, zero shame. One almost hit a wheelbarrow. Didn't even look back. I built a chain gate. Found it cut the next morning. Left handwritten notes. They blew away or were torn down. Told the HOA. They laughed. Called the sheriff's office. Left voicemails, emails, everything short of smoke signals. Finally tracked down Deputy Marks at the diner, half buried in a cheeseburger. "You got proof?" he asked, licking ranch off his fingers. "I'm the proof," I shot back. "It's my land." He just grinned like I told a funny story. You know how these things go. Probably just confused rich girls. Confused? No, Confused people don't cut chains. Confused people don't bring spectators. This was intentional. This was routine. And I was starting to realize something dangerous. I wasn't dealing with spoiled tourists. I was dealing with queens. Social media royalty who thought land was background and locals were props. And the more I asked for respect, the more invisible I became. But soon, I'd make sure they saw me and remembered me. They didn't ask. They didn't slow down. They just drove a six-figure Lamborghini straight through my crops. Like my farm was their shortcut to Starbucks. First time, I gave them a warning. Second time, I put up signs. Third time, I called the sheriff. But when nothing worked, and they brought their friends to film it for TikTok, something in me snapped. I didn't want revenge. I wanted a lesson that would stick. In leather seats and shattered pride. They wanted a shortcut? I gave them one. Straight into the ugliest corner of nature. This is how I made their precious car pay the ultimate price. It was early morning when I found what finally broke me. They'd done it again. Only this time they veered off their usual path and drove straight through a corner of my soybean patch. Deep tire grooves sliced through rows I'd been tending all season. That section was due to yield next month. Now it looked like a monster truck graveyard. I stood there in silence. Not angry, not sad, just hollow. Then my phone buzzed. A new message. From my niece. Uncle John. You've seen this, right? Upside down face. I opened the link. TikTok. Caption. Country roads take me LOL cow nail polish dashing away. There they were. Susan in the pink crop top. Carol behind the wheel. Both shrieking with laughter. Background? My damn soybeans. My broken fence. My life. Over 200,000 views. The comments burned my eyes. That farmer needs to chill loudly crying face. Lumbos don't stop for cow's zany face nail polish. Queen energy. Drift harder next time. That's when I stopped feeling helpless and started planning. Because actions have consequences. That's not revenge. That's balance. And I had just the place to show them that. A soft patch of pasture they always tore through. The one spot where the soil never quite dried, no matter how much sun hit it. From here on, I wasn't fixing fences. I was building something else entirely. They drove a Lamborghini through my farm like it was their daddy's racetrack. No apology. No slowing down. Just mud on the tires and middle fingers in the air. Like my land meant nothing. First time, I tried to be civil. Second time, I called the cops. Third time, I stopped playing nice. Because when someone turns your hard work into a personal TikTok challenge, it's time to stop asking for respect and start serving consequences. What I built wasn't illegal, wasn't violent, but it sure as hell was unforgettable. This is the story of how two Karen sisters hit the wrong patch of dirt, and that dirt hit back. Planning revenge sounds dramatic, but I wasn't scheming in some dim-lit basement with creepy music in the background. Nah, I was standing in boots, knee-deep in topsoil, studying a 1-acre stretch near the back fence where the ground always stayed soft. Even in summer, after 3 straight days of sun, that patch would squish. The cows avoided it. My dog would circle wide any time we herded through. To anyone else, it looked like just another field. But to me, it was a stage. I started small, just mental notes. Their pattern was easy now. Fridays, late afternoons. Always a dramatic entrance with loud music, flashing phones, and a trail of chaos in their wake. They hit the same path every time, cutting close to the corral, right over a low-lying strip where water naturally pooled after rain. So I gave Mother Nature a little encouragement. I rigged old hoses from our irrigation system, buried shallow under straw and dirt, connected them to a timer switch and a manual trigger, something I could flip with a button from 200 yards away. Then I started layering the soil. Clay. Manure. More clay. Sprayed it heavy every day for a week until the foundation went from soft to sinister. I tested it with a hay bale. Rolled it down the trail, light shove. It sank halfway to its belly, no bounce, no resistance. Perfect. Then I disguised it. Spread straw. Brushed it until the top looked indistinguishable from the rest of the trail. Flat, dry, harmless. I stood there and whispered, Welcome mat's ready. I didn't tell a soul. Just sat back, waited, and listened. 2 sunsets passed. Nothing. Then, on the 3rd day, just as the sky turned blood orange and the birds settled in the trees, I heard it, the bass, the tires on gravel, the laughter. They were back. And this time, the dirt was ready. They treated my farm like a shortcut. Their $200,000 Lamborghini? Just a toy. My land? A joke. But jokes have punchlines. So I didn't yell. I didn't chase. I built a trap, silent, legal, and devastating. And when they hit it, let's just say mud remembers what disrespect forgets. Started the same way it always did. The echo of subwoofers vibrating through the hills, rattling windows and birds from their trees. Then the dust cloud, rising just past the ridge like a sandstorm with an attitude. Right on schedule. There they were. Blinding white Lamborghini Urus. Polished to perfection. Chrome wheels spinning like it had just rolled off a showroom floor. Susan had her head out the window, pink crop top flapping in the wind, laughing like she'd just been crowned queen of chaos. Carol gripped the wheel with smug confidence, sunglasses big enough to double as windshields. She punched the horn twice. Beep beep, like it was some kind of greeting. They spotted me, of course, standing by the fence, arms folded, dead silent. Susan cupped her hands around her mouth and yelled, "You gonna wave this time, Farmer John?" The others in the convertible behind them hooped and cheered. I didn't move, just eyed the field like a hunter watching the trap close. As their SUV rolled toward the same path they'd torn through a dozen times before, I slipped my hand into my back pocket, fingers curled around the remote. Thumb on the button. One press. Click. A few 100 feet ahead, buried beneath straw and dead grass, the hoses hissed to life. Gallons of water surged into the shallow clay-soaked earth, thickening it just enough, but not too much. They reached the welcome mat in less than 10 seconds. First, nothing. The front tires rolled smoothly, the engine growled in victory. Then slop. A wet, ugly sound. The rear tires dipped. Not much. Just enough that you had to notice. Carol leaned forward, confused. Then she did what cocky people do when something pushes back. She floored it. Bad move. The tires spun like blenders. Clay and manure sprayed behind them in 2 high arcs, splashing against the undercarriage. The Urus bucked, groaned, and then sank. It didn't explode, didn't flip, it just gave up. Like a diva in the rain with ruined mascara. Susan screamed. Carol yelled. Everyone behind them, recording everything. Out came Susan, 1 foot into the field before she sank ankle-deep with a wet splutch. She shrieked, tried another step, slipped, face first, flat into the mud. Arms flailed, ponytail flopped. Her phone flew into the bog and vanished. Carol panicked, climbed out the window instead of the door, because the door was stuck in mud. She stepped on the hood for leverage. Big mistake. That hood had at least 2 inches of runoff now. Her foot shot out sideways like a hockey puck and down she went, landing flat in a pile of strategically placed cow manure. One of their friends in the back, already streaming. OMG, Susan looks like a powdered donut dipped in hot fudge. I just stood there, unmoved, sipping sweet tea from a mason jar like it was a front row seat at the county fair. Carol finally looked at me, covered in mud and ego, and shouted, "You did this." I smiled. "You mean, planted a field?" They laughed as they tore through my farm in a Lamborghini, like my land was their personal playground. Crops ruined, fences smashed, cows panicked. But I didn't yell. I waited, because the earth remembers disrespect, and I made sure her precious car would never forget what it ran over. So there they were, 2 dripping divas knee-deep in humiliation. Susan slapping mud off her arms, purple nails caked in brown slime. Carol stomping in circles, barking orders like she was commanding a fashion-forward rescue mission. Their friends? Oh, they were no help. Filming, laughing, streaming. One girl wheezed from laughing so hard. "Stop! I can't breathe." Susan's eyebrows are sliding off. That's when Carol turned to me, finger shaking. "You're gonna pay for this." This car is worth more than your house. You think this is funny? I took a slow sip of tea. Nope. I think it's necessary. Susan tried lunging forward but sank again, losing a shoe this time. She cursed, then froze, because I pulled out something she didn't expect. My phone. You needed proof, I said calmly. Now I've got hours of it. In 4K. That's when the screaming turned to silence. Later that night, the footage blew up faster than a backyard fireworks show. First TikTok, then YouTube, then the local news. The title? Karen sisters learn you can't off-road in a Lambo. Slow-motion edits. Dramatic violin. Laugh track remixes. It was everywhere. Millions of views in days. Strangers messaged me, thanking me. Others just sent tractor emojis. A guy from town dropped off a pie and a note that said, "For the hero we never knew we needed." And across every comment section, the same phrase over and over again. That mud was personal. They tore up my farm in a $200,000 Lamborghini like it was a joke. I warned them. They laughed. So I turned their shortcut into a sinkhole. Mud, manure, and humiliation served cold. This isn't just karma. It's rural justice, with horsepower stuck 6 feet deep. The next morning, silence. Not a single engine. No whooping. No screaming bassline shaking the air. Just birds, breeze, and the sound of peace finally settling back into the soil. Out in the field, the trap was already drying, cracked crust over sun-baked mud. But you could still see the tire-shaped scars, fossilized in a perfect arc of arrogance. By noon, the video had crossed 1 million views. People everywhere were sharing it. Urban influencers called me a hero. Country folks said I'd done what every farmer dreamed of. Someone even dubbed the field on Google Maps Karen Bog National Park. But the Karen sisters? Oh, they weren't done yet. 2 days later, I got a crisp envelope delivered by courier. Inside, a lawsuit, accusations of psychological warfare, emotional distress, and intentional sabotage of a high-end vehicle. They even included blurry screenshots of themselves covered in mud like they just survived a war documentary. I laughed. Then I sent it all to my lawyer, Vic, who owed me a favor since high school. After reviewing my evidence, footage, reports, texts, TikToks, he chuckled over the phone. Let them sue. You'll own their car by Christmas. A week later, their lawyer dropped the case quietly. Probably after seeing the viral clips with 40,000 people commenting, "Play stupid games, win muddy prizes." I haven't seen the Lamborghini since. But last month at the grocery store, I saw them. No makeup, no bling, pushing a grocery cart, and driving a gray Kia Soul. We made eye contact. Susan looked away. I smiled. Some stories end with explosions. Mine ended with mud, silence, and a Kia Soul. I didn't do this for clout, not for views. I did it because respect is earned. And when people don't listen to fences, sometimes the ground has to speak for you. They rolled over my rules like they meant nothing. Now, their story is stuck in more than just the internet. It's buried in this field forever. So if you've ever been pushed around, disrespected, or run over by someone who thinks the rules don't apply, remember this: you don't need revenge, just a little patience and a well-placed puddle.